Alright, so normally when I give you guys Evil Mojo's reasons for balancing a character, whether it be a buff or a nerf, one of the main reasons, if not the only reason, is due to win rate. You guys have heard this a few times now, and it looks like many of you are aggravated that they seem to focus so much on win rates when it comes to balance. Many of you feel that basing balance on win rates is not healthy for the game. For the past 2 days, I've been sent plenty of arguments, articles, and even videos on why win rate balance isn't ideal and balance methods that are ideal. Now personally, yeah, I do agree. I don't think balancing around win rates is the best idea either. There's definitely information you can take away from win rates, whether it's a flat win rate across the entire game or more specific win rates from different levels of play. But regardless of what win rate you're looking at, there's always a lot of variables that affect that win rate. Let's use Ruckus as an example. So Ruckus is one of the more difficult tanks. Takes more skill in more areas to use effectively than most, if not arguably all. So ideally his win rate would be pretty low, right? The more skill something takes, the lower its win rate. That makes sense. However, how many people pick Ruckus as a solo tank? More often than not, that'll lead to a loss. Also, how many people are running a good talent with a good build? There's gonna be a lot of losses caused by people who pick characters in situations where they aren't good, people who pick builds that aren't set up very well, and people who pick talents that don't fit the situation or are flat out not good. How do you filter that stuff out to find a fair win rate based on how the character is played when set up correctly and played correctly? Another example, let's look at flanks. So flank win rates are lower by nature because they're riskier and take more skill to play effectively. But even though that's supposed to be the case, they perform better in lower ranks where they aren't played effectively than they do in higher ranks where they are played effectively. So something is really wrong there, right? Isn't that supposed to be the other way around? In higher levels, you rarely see flanks, whether it's higher level casual elo or ranked or even esports. For those of you that watch esports, how many different flanks do you see and how often do you see them? Barely at all, right? You see Eevee a good amount, Xin an okay amount, anything else? No? Maybe some random one once in a blue? I saw SSG play Maeve against Envy the other day because Envy picked BK and Eevee as their DPS. That's the first time I've seen Maeve in esports in forever, and it happened over Envy's drafting mistake. No hate Envy, I love you guys, win the whole thing again please. So yeah, something is obviously pretty wrong with the balance if the class that's supposed to take the most skill and be rewarded for it is almost never seen at the levels where skill is such a major factor. And there are more things that are wrong, but the flank class is probably the biggest example. So it's kinda hard to argue that something is wrong with the way Evil Mojo is approaching balance. The evidence is all there. And I got you guys constantly telling me to tell them that something has to change. You guys are frustrated, you feel ignored and neglected, and I know that's not what Evil Mojo wants. I know it isn't, trust me, they care, they do. The AOC wouldn't be a thing if they didn't. The things that have been accomplished since the AOC was introduced would have never happened if they didn't. So we're gonna do our best to communicate this to them. You guys don't like this win rate focused balance, you want another approach. What approaches do you want? Well, I've seen two mainly. One is to balance based off of community feedback. Community feedback is most definitely something that always has to be taken into account. However, I do agree with the point they made in the last AOC meeting, that sometimes the community can be wrong. Like I said in the last video, many people cried out that Grover was being killed when they removed Efflorescence and put the bonus heal distance from it in his base kit. So many people said they were killing him, but in reality, Grover became one of the strongest supports ever. Then when he was justifiably nerfed, many people again said they were killing him again, and in reality, he is currently still doing really well. Well enough to justify a small nerf to his cripple duration in the upcoming Street Style update. Willow is another example. When Willow came out, Willow wasn't all that great, but so many people were saying Willow was OP and busted. Willow had a bug where her seedlings would teleport onto people randomly when thrown. Pair this with her Scorn talent and somebody is gonna end up getting randomly bursted down. This wasn't Willow being OP, this was Willow being bugged and RNG based, and needing a fix. So always taking community feedback in isn't the best idea. Yes, of course, it most definitely should be done a lot, but there has to be good reasoning behind it. Right now, everyone wants Koga and Xin to not be nerfed so hard. Koga doesn't do well at higher levels at all. This nerf will make him even worse there. Xin is one of the 2 flanks that does well at higher levels. This nerf will likely make it so he doesn't anymore. Then Leon and Cassie. Those 2 are picked or banned at higher levels in every game. One or the other, picked or banned. If they're not, some big mistake was made. They've been in this spot for a while, but haven't been nerfed. You guys were happy to hear that Leon could possibly be nerfed, but you guys were also very upset to hear that Cassie would not be nerfed. Nerfing Leon and Cassie has very justifiable reasoning, even if the win rate doesn't back it up. Picked, banned every game. A lot of frequent burst, they feel good to play, but terrible to play against. So this would be a case of community feedback that has to be taken into account. Then there was another approach. An approach other games have adopted as well, and it's proven to work rather well. That's balancing around higher levels and not lower levels. Now before you start typing your comments, hear me out. Let me explain what people have explained to me. That doesn't mean balancing around higher levels exclusively and ignoring all other levels. No, absolutely not. So basically, if you balance around the highest level, you end up balancing all levels below it. The video I was shown, and I'll link it below in case you guys want to see it, called it trickle down balance. And in theory, it makes sense. It's proven to work pretty well, like I said. Balance everything at the highest point of its skill usage, and as a result, everything below it should be absolutely fine. I kinda quoted that from that very video, wanna be transparent about it. So many of you may feel that balancing around such a small portion of the player base will only lead to disaster for the rest of the player base. If the game is balanced around the highest level, then it won't be fun for the other levels. That's where compromise comes in. Now, this isn't easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it is doable. You have to make all the other levels happy, while also keeping the highest level from taking things and breaking them. Leon is a fantastic example. Leon isn't all too special at most levels. Annoying at all levels, yes, but not game-breaking or overpowered at anything besides higher levels, and that is because of Leon's Eminence spam build. You can build Leon with Heraldry 5 and Eminence, and this will allow you to very frequently use a hit scan attack with no falloff that can deal up to 1200 damage, as long as you don't miss it. Higher skilled players break this build. They have presence up all the time. I have taken out multiple enemies by myself with this talent, and while I do play at a higher level, I'm far from the best. Somebody like Rock Monkey, I saw him get off 8 presences in one top play. 8 of them. He dealt thousands of damage in a few seconds just by hitting the attack over and over. In all other levels of play, you don't really see this happen unless the enemies are basically standing still or constantly lining up. I've heard this next argument a lot from many people. Leon's Eminence build isn't overpowered because most of the player base can't land constant presences, so no need to nerf it. Well, okay, so nerfing it cause it's OP at a higher level won't hurt the people at lower ones because they can't make max use of it anyway. It's perfect, there are no real downsides. Now let's look at something else. Dredge. Dredge sucks at higher levels. He's so bad. He can be countered very easily. At lower levels, I hear that people still ban him. It doesn't matter what level of play Dredge is being played at. He spams lots of unreliable damage. He's annoying to everyone, but only good at lower levels. Now I said the approach was to balance based on higher levels, right? So does that mean Dredge would be buffed so he's good at higher levels, making him even more broken at lower ones? No, that's when you compromise. Dredge is easy to be effective with at lower levels. So what you do is make it so it's harder to be effective with him, but at the same time raise his effectiveness. So at higher levels where the skill is present, he can be really good, but at lower levels where the skill is not present, he can still do well, but not be so easy to get big value on. Same thing can be done with all the flanks. This is tricky, but again, doable. Now I'm not saying make every character take as much skill as let's say BK or Eevee. No, that would suck for everyone not at a higher level. The game wouldn't be fun anymore for all the other levels and the player population would drop. I'm just saying don't make it incredibly easy for a character to do really well from the start. Hitting the peak of a character shouldn't happen in a game or two, but doing okay on a character right off the bat while you're learning them and continuing to get better and better as you learn is perfectly fine. So that's what I mean when I say balance around the higher levels. Do it, but compromise with all the others so the game is still fun for everyone and the balance is a lot healthier. Again, this is proven to work well and everyone wins as a result. Lower level players, you hate dredge, you hate flanks. This brings them down for you, making them less frustrating for you, while bringing them up for higher level players, also making it less frustrating for them. I want to play Moji without getting smacked by a Cassie and Leon who are 10 times stronger and easier to do well on, and you don't want Moji walking up and melting you with 1850 DPS. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, thank you all for sending that stuff my way and voicing your concerns. If there are things I missed that you pointed out to me, feel free to point them out again and explain them. Also, I've heard the arguments from people who want this. I also care about the arguments from people who don't agree, or agree but in a different way, if that makes sense. This is something we want to bring to Evil Mojo, but I want to be positive I've heard both sides of the argument as well. So please, go right ahead, comment all your thoughts, your worries, your concerns. I'll read as many as I can so we can go to Evil Mojo with everyone's feedback. Now, there is something I want to say before I go. We do have crossplay, so we can't balance PC and console separately. What's really good on console seems to be a lot different than what's really good on PC. This makes the whole thing a lot harder, and it is something I wanted to point out so you console guys don't think I'm forgetting about you. But I have no idea what's the best way to make it work. Often, games pick a side to mainly focus on when it comes to balance, whether it's PC or console. And I'm not saying there should be a focus or anything, I'm just saying since it's often difficult, many games end up picking a side. I'm open to suggestions on how to make it work for both PC and console though, so let me know. Thank you all in advance for your feedback. And that's pretty much it guys, I want to thank you all for watching, I very much appreciate it, and I'm gonna see you guys laters. Bye!